Can someone please get that money is the root of all evil quote right for once? Y'all, that was the only thing I could think to open up this review with. It's a pet peeve of mine. I see this quote misquoted all the time, and it happened in this show. The correct quote, and I am paraphrasing, but this is the correct quote, that the love of money is the root of all evil, not that money is the root of all evil. I digress. This review is for an upcoming Netflix series called The Tourist. Hold on, I've got a dog that wants to sit in my lap. Okay, it's for an upcoming Netflix series called The Tourist. However, it's not a Netflix original. So here's the thing I found out about this show. I saw that it was upcoming. I put in a request for a screener. I was granted the screener, but I cannot put it up until the review embargo for season 1 lifts on February 1st. That's when season 1 goes live on Netflix. And on the 29th, when season 2 goes live. So I just tonight finished watching season 1. And what I was started off saying in the beginning was, this is actually a BBC series from what I understand. So you guys across the pond, you may know exactly what I'm talking about, but for most folks here in the US, we've never heard of this show. I've never heard of this show. And I watched season 1, like I said, it's only, I think it's 6 episodes long. It's not very long, but each episode is about an hour and it uses up almost every single minute of that hour. The credits, like the end credits, they're not very long at all. So you go throughout almost the whole 57, 58, however many minutes. Each episode is pretty weighty. And I really enjoyed that about this. I mean, in contrast, I was watching that show Echo. I think Echo was the last show I watched before this. And maybe an episode, let's say if it said an episode was going to be 42 or 44 minutes, but maybe it really was only 39 because there were that many credits. Anyway, whatever. That has nothing to do with the point of this review, which is that this show is awesome. I loved it and I enjoyed it so much. I couldn't wait to talk about it with you guys. I'm looking forward to season 2. I'm going to hop on season 2 right away and we'll be putting up that review when season 2 goes live. So The Tourist stars Jamie Dornan, and I had to check out this girl's name, Danielle Macdonald. I didn't think I'd seen her before, but that's not true. I have seen her in some stuff before. It's just this was what made me notice her as an actor. This show pulled me in right away. It gets started off like that. The premise is, so Jamie Dornan plays this guy. He's in Australia. This truck chases him down. He gets in an accident. He wakes up, has no memory. So you spend the entire show, just like his character, not knowing who he is, what's his past, what was he doing there, why was this guy after him in the truck, why are all these other people after him, what has he been caught up in, who are these people that he encounters that know him and he has no idea who they are. So you're solving this little mystery along with him. And Chibi. And with each episode, bit by bit, those little onion layers get peeled back. And Chibi, stop. And and more about him is revealed to you. And I can't say that this is necessarily a new concept because it's not. You know, we've all probably seen movies or shows where the character has lost their memory and along the course of the story, he or she finds out more about themselves, and not all of it is pretty. And that's the case with this character. I loved that there was really not much time at all before things started to get real. And by that I mean the chase, him being chased down at the very beginning. Then he wakes up in the hospital, and Danielle Macdonald plays, she's like a what they call her, constable. She's like a police officer or sheriff or whatever. And she's handling the case. She comes to check on him, try to find out information. And so she is basically his only tether to his situation or to his reality. She's like his first friend that he gets to know. He calls her, I think in the beginning, they make, one of them says this funny little thing about, oh, you know, I'm the only friend you've got in the whole world, because she's like the only one he gets to know from the beginning. Something that I also really appreciated about this show was the writing. Well, I mean, obviously the writing is excellent if I'm so excited to be talking about it like this with you. The little puzzle pieces as they fit together, and things making more sense, and questions that you might have had at the very beginning. There was an incident that happened in the very first episode, and I was thinking, what? Now, come on. So obviously this has to be going on if this were to happen, but why? What's the deal? And who did, you know? But then a few episodes later, all this gets answered, of course. And right now, having come off of watching season 1 for the first time, I can't think of any holes in the plot except for maybe 2 tiny little cons. It's not necessarily a plot hole. It's just a bit of a writing, a tiny shaky moment in some of the writing. And when I explain it to you, you guys may feel like it's not that big of a deal. And honestly, it isn't that big of a deal, because it definitely does not affect my love of this show. I cannot wait to get started with season 2. I'm excited. I'll probably be starting that tomorrow or something. Okay, so something that I really enjoyed also was about the characters in here. For the most part, they are nuanced. They have shades of gray to them. They're complicated, and you grow to become attached to them, specifically the 2 main characters, Jamie Dornan's character and Danielle, Macdonald's character. The character she plays is named Helen. I loved her character in here so much. She was so real, and she was just an absolutely lovely human being, and I rooted for her, and I wanted the best for her, and I felt sorry for her, and she was just wonderful. I really, really enjoyed her character. One of the baddies in here that comes after him, well, when I say shades of gray to most people, not all, there's probably 2 characters in here that I can think of off the top of my head that really don't have many shades of gray to them. They're just completely unlikable, and one of them is just an absolutely terrible human being. The other is not much better. I think maybe you'll know them when you see them, but something about one of these characters, the really bad guy, is anybody he would encounter, he would say whatever their profession is, he would say that his mother had the same profession. You know, that reminded me of Joker in The Dark Knight, you know, when he would say, you want to know how I got these scars? And he had different stories for each telling. Anyway, that reminded me of him. Something else that I appreciated is that injuries were believable, and there was no bouncing back from harm that would happen to someone. So it was very realistic, very grounded in reality. I liked that a lot. I liked also just the cinematography, the way it was filmed. I liked how the intros happened. It reminded me almost of like a Wild Westy type of feel, the score of the intro. You'll know what I mean when you see it. And then another thing was the closing. When it would happen, it would always happen on this cliffhangery situation. Sometimes right in the middle of a situation, like let's say mid-action, and then it's done. I loved that, because of course that is a strong hook to keep you wanting to come back for more. I did pace myself on this though, because I have until February 1st before I'm going to be putting it up. So I've got quite a bit of buffer. As of the filming of this, it's January 20th. Anyway, yeah, I like that. There were a couple of quotes in here that I thought were really interesting, well written, and I wrote one of them down. I know that there was one earlier than this one that I wrote down, but for whatever reason I didn't write that one down, and that kind of bugs me. But there's a situation in here where there's a character and they are in dire straits, like physically, and they're saying to another character, basically trying to give some life advice for this character's future. And this person said, when someone reaches out to you, you've got to let them. do this thing for you, that, or you got to let them into your life. And this person said, it's the only thing we have to pull us back from being the worst version of ourselves. And I really liked that quote. I thought that was succinct and very profound. And I liked it enough to write it down. And I'm really kicking myself for not writing down whatever that other quote was that really stood out to me. Sometimes there will be these little small moments of writing in whatever I'm watching. And it strikes me in such a way that I love it so much. I want to specifically talk about that with you guys, and this was one of those times. I also liked how the writing in here, as the story progresses, it would take unexpected turns. You can't always predict what's going to happen. You know, a lot of times when you've seen movies and shows as many times as you and I have, we can very often predict something that's going to happen. There are some moments like that in here, but for the most part, I felt like the writing in here really kept you on your toes. You couldn't necessarily predict how something was going to go, and I appreciated that a lot. Something else that I had noticed about this show when I looked it up was that it's described as a comedy thriller or comedy action or whatever. And it is definitely a thriller because there's all of these situations that are happening as this guy tries to find out his past and who he is, and there's all these bad types that are coming around and causing trouble. But this was described as a comedy, and initially, in the very, very beginning, it didn't really feel like a comedy. But as it went on, and I think if I would go back and watch it from the beginning, I would pick up more the comedy aspect. But in the beginning, the very beginning, as a first-time viewer, and I'm watching this and I'm just so caught up with like what's going on with this guy, and he's been so seriously hurt, and he's also trying to figure out what the heck is, who he is, what's going on around him. There's all these bad people and this stuff, like what? And so I was kind of pulled into that aspect of it and didn't really pick up on the comedy that was in it. And by comedy, I don't mean slapsticky silliness. No, it's more like a black comedy. And as the show goes on, as you settle in and you get to know the characters more, some things definitely started to jump out at me as a little funnier than I probably initially had taken it. I don't know if that was just me getting into the groove of it, or maybe some of the comedy became a little bit more apparent as the writing went along. Not that the situation got any less dire for his character, but I think you'll know what I mean when you watch it. I don't know, whatever. This was just a really fun show. I think I've gone through pretty much all of the pros. Oh, yeah, there was one thing that I wrote down. I wrote down real/realistic people. By that, I mean the people in this show, all the different side characters, they come across as very authentic and genuine people. They're not Barbie doll perfect, and they're not all necessarily model quality material, but they're very real. That really helped me feel very grounded in the story. And I truly believed that these people were the characters that they were playing. They sold me on that for sure. Obviously, Jamie Dornan, I mean, he's like a pretty boy, so there's that, but he's not necessarily presented in that way. Speaking of Jamie Dornan, I really like his acting. The very first time I ever noticed him as an actor was in The Fall with Gillian Anderson, or Gillian Anderson, however you say her name, whatever. That was a good series, except the last season wasn't the best, but whatever. That's the first time I noticed him. Then he shows up in the 50 Shades movies. I never watched those, but he was really good in here. He was a very sympathetic character. His acting was really good. And also, like I said, the actress who played in here, the cop lady who's helping him, everyone in here was fine. But that chick, she was really good because she was very expressive with her face. Her expressions captured so well the feeling that you knew was going on inside of her at that moment. So I was super impressed with her. She was definitely a standout for me. So yeah, so there's that. I think that is all of the pros. There are two very tiny little cons. These are the things I was talking about earlier. In the beginning, when his vehicle has the accident, it's because this truck has been chasing him. This is very, I would say this is super tiny spoiler, but not really, because this is stuff that happens in the first few minutes of the first episode. When the truck causes this accident to happen, and then the person that's pursuing him, they split. You find out later why, but they split. And when he's in the hospital and they're talking to him about the accident, and they're saying, at one point, one of the characters said something like, we didn't know how you, or how did you come to be off the road? We don't know how you came off the road. Do you not know how you came off the road? Like that sort of thing. And I was thinking to myself, how could they not tell how this accident happened? Wouldn't they have seen the tracks of the truck that was pursuing him and had this collision? So that stood out to me immediately as an issue. And I don't know if I'm missing something. Maybe because of the road. I mean, he was on a paved road. I think the truck came at him from off of maybe a dirt road, but still you would think it would leave some sort of track or indication behind. So that stood out at me. It's very, very minor, y'all. Super minor. And then another one. There's a character who falls down into a well. And the well's, I mean, it's not endlessly deep, but it's deep enough that it would not be an easy thing to get out of. And yet, at some point, this does happen. And that's not really explained. I would have liked to have seen us witness how this happened, because it shouldn't have happened. You'll know what I mean when you see it. But that also is a very minor blip in the whole thing. Anyway, this show was just a lot of fun, and I loved it so much. I couldn't wait to start filming this review, and looking forward to when it goes live, and hopefully you guys can check it out. And yeah, let me know what you think. You can tell I loved it, and hopefully season 2 will be just as fulfilling. I'll let you know if it isn't. Okay, I think that's it. I don't have anything else to say, so I'm wrapping this one up. We'll see you in the next video. Later.